Welcome to Checks and Balances. I'm Vincent. This is James Blair. And this is Jason Leong, CEO and founder of PocektSmith. And this week on Checks and Balances, the future of finance.
Thank you, Jason, for joining us again for part 2 of the series that we're doing with you. Today is, the previous episode, we spoke a little bit about what PocektSmith is, but so for those that haven't watched it, Jason is the CEO and founder of PocektSmith, a tool that helps you understand your financial position. It really gives you information, helps you categorize your expenses, and helps you plan where you want to go in the future. Today is really all about talking about the future of finances, though. So I'm going to have Mike on particular on a very short leash because I don't want this to go for hours. Jason's got a day he needs to get on with. But I guess one of the main things we're thinking about is, firstly, very keen to hear, Jason, where PocektSmith wants to go in the future. Firstly, what features you're working on, but then also just where do you want to take the brand? But then I think there's a much wider discussion that we can have around, we're seeing what's happening in the UK and the US, where finances are going, and thinking, well, what's the consumer's interaction going to be with financial services in the future? Where do we see things heading in the future?
Well, where would you go?
So, Jason, let me start without it being so philosophical. Geez.
Is that Australian?
I've got a degree in philosophy. I could do this all day.
Being so high level, let's say. Let me start with maybe a little bit of an easier question. What are some of the features that PocektSmith are working on at the moment?
Yeah, a couple of really cool things. So, and thanks again, James and Mike. Glad to be here talking to you guys about it. Just really enjoy having a chat about money. It's super refreshing talking to you guys. In terms of where I guess we could take a bit of a step back and where we want to be. We've really enjoyed serving customers from all over the world. And that diversity in how people look at their money, I think it really enriches us and our perspective on philosophically the human condition. It reaffirms our faith that people are kind, they're good, they've got ambitions, and ultimately there's a lot to love about people and their journeys. What we want to do is to continue to help our customers make those good decisions and to achieve what they want to achieve in life. And it's not always about the accumulation of wealth. It's often, about happiness. This sounds like I'm Buddha, but the fact of the matter is it's what everyone really wants to get to. And how we get to that, and how does this relate to software? Our company really is about people. We're strong on culture. We're strong on communication, and our team are one of the best at actually communicating with our customers worldwide, and that helps them sort of understand our customer needs and use the software to their advantage. So one of my favorite stories is, and we've got a blog piece about this particular family. This is pre-COVID, but they sold everything and they were traveling across the US in an RV with their baby, towing a Jeep, and with a husky as well, I think. And it was just like, wow. And why are they using PocektSmith? They're using it to keep track of their finances because they're working remotely, but they're on reduced incomes, right? So what are we going to do in service of that? It's about making it more possible for people to get more information into PocektSmith so they can get that rounded off clarity of vision. This means enhancing our data our data connections engine, so that this is an upgrade that we're launching either this week or next. It's currently in beta. We've got about 10% of our customers on it already. This is open banking readiness, and I think we'll talk a little bit about that. So better security for connecting to your data feeds, different types of data, and the option to, in the future, pull in other asset classes like crypto. So that's exciting for us. The other thing that we're doing is, we've got a feature in beta right now, which is our dashboards. So PocektSmith used to have one dashboard. You'd come in and you take a look at, a little widget for your bank balances and your breakdown of your spending and your recent transactions. This has been a long time coming. We've long understood that people are so unique when it comes to what they're looking to solve. And so we now have the ability for people to make dashboards of their own, and you can have multiple dashboards as well.
Yeah.
And one really lovely outcome is that it allows people, and I guess we call our prime type of customer, the home CFO. We allow the home CFO to better communicate the household financial situation to the other stakeholders in the family. And what this means is that someone can make a very simple dashboard for their partner who just wants to know, okay, well, are we spending too much on brunch? I think we talked about $1,000 brunches. Sorry, $10,000. Brunches. Are we sticking to
that's
that?
a year, Jason. That's not 1 meal.
But brunches,
$1,000 lunches, not $1,000 brunches. Yeah,
it's a worthy investment. Can we have budgets that the kids can understand, for example? So one of the challenges in communicating financial information, as you know, is that it's complex, right? There's a lot of it. People get overwhelmed. Whereas with our new dashboard, people can make super simple ones for different purposes. So they can narrow down their focus on the stuff that they want to achieve or what they want to communicate. Just those two are the couple of the cool things that we're looking forward to rolling out more to our users.
Yeah, cool. I love that idea around being able to communicate that the almost from a corporate level, an EMI, like a management information perspective level, being able to communicate the finances to different stakeholders or different family members, in a more effective way to just get the engagement going, especially from a young age of children, and sort of start that education in a really interactive and almost fun way, right?
Absolutely.
And I guess the to play on a little bit from that, you talked about open banking and the integrations and the how that's going to enhance the product as well. And do you see, I guess, the adoption of open banking? I know it's been really slow so far, but from the bank's perspective, but do you see the adoption of open banking in your platform and sort of leading to a more, real-time sort of world where you not only does the customer get that real-time feedback about what they're doing with their finances, but also provides them with that point of interaction and sort of and how that's going to work and shape your product as well.
Before you answer that question, Jason, can we just quickly just pause, and Michael, can you explain what open banking means?
Okay, sorry. Let's do that. So James, like James said at the top of the podcast, he's going to keep me on a pretty short leash here because I'm really passionate about the future of finance and where it's going and how people interact with it and what that means. And I can literally talk about this for days on end. Open banking is originally, or it's in its infant stages, it was mainly centered around Europe and the UK, and is now sort of shifting the US and this sort of thing as well. What it is banks opening up your personal data. So your transactional data, your spend data, your savings data, your account balances, your credit card data, all these sorts of things, to third parties. So that in this example, it would be, let's say I had a credit card with Westpac and I had my savings account with ANZ and my transactional account with ASB. What PocektSmith would be able to do there is to get a direct link, and hopefully it will be real time, although that may still be some way down the track, to get that data directly from each of those different bankers or banks, and then aggregate that and display it to me. So really pull it all together and be able to do things with that data as well. So at a fundamental level, that's what open banking is, without getting too tech.
And obviously don't worry, your information won't go to everybody. You've got to give authority to be able to allow that information. But like if you're getting a mortgage or if you're talking to a financial advisor, instead of starting with, tell me your full name, tell me your address, tell me how much you have in savings, what's in your KiwiSaver, where is it? You'll be able to give authority for us to see it potentially through a PocektSmith or some other solution where you can go, here's all my information, stop asking me the boring questions.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So I can keep drilling that for a while, but I want to get back to Jason. So sort of, Jason, how do you see open banking, I guess, if I was to sum that question up, sort of shaping the future of PocektSmith and where you guys are going to run with that and get to ultimately with that sort of side of things?
It's an interesting question because we are living in the world of open banking already. It's just that. So everything you described, we can offer our customers, except that it's very fraught and very complex to get to that point. And it's not very user-friendly as well. So open banking basically creates an environment in which hopefully the methods by which a company like ours sort of gets access to that consumer data is just consistent. Just selfishly, it would free us, companies like us, to focus less on the technology that acquires that data and more on the features that we're building out for the customers. Until that happens, half of our business will still be in the business of getting data or data acquisition. And that is the promise of open banking. If we take it a step back and sort of, put the technology aside, in principle, open banking is about acknowledging that the data that you have with providers, and open banking is a subset of what New Zealand will be calling consumer data right. And that is the acknowledgement that the data that you have with your providers, your utilities, your bills, your banking information, your mortgage information, that is your data. It also kind of, I'm not entirely happy that Progressive and Countdown, for example, with the One Card, they've got all this information about what I've bought and how much it costs, and I do not have access to that. So, the reason it's important is because at the moment you don't have ownership over that data. You're probably being given access to it, but you close an account with your bank and it all goes away. The ability to access it, the ability to interpret that data, you could walk into a branch and pay for a bunch of printouts, but it's not in this day and age having actual access to your data. So we are very excited on a number of counts. One is, yes, from a feature perspective, it would make it easier for us to process that data. What it will deliver to the customer at the end of the day is not going to be monumentally different from what we're already doing now, given that we made those advancements years ago. But what I'm really excited about is that there will be a time where, Mike, you don't have to explain what open banking is, because we all have a latent understanding as to what we're entitled to when it comes to our data, when it comes to our privacy and how it works when we authorize one company to share data with another company. And so what I'm talking about here is a leveling up of our ability to understand what we can do with our data and taking that control back. Because currently, when that data is in the hands of our vendors, it's a big data play. So they're using your data to influence how you think, to influence what you buy, to make better decisions about how they extract more money from you. So that shift of power back to the consumer, and most importantly, an understanding as to what that data could do for you, which is effectively what PocektSmith does. It's like, hey, don't turn a blind eye to this information that you're generating. Look at it, because it tells you so much about who you are and what you can do with it. That is super exciting to me.
No, absolutely. And I've been on the flip side of that, which is leveraging that data to influence consumers to spend more money. And it's
Shame on
James,
you, Michael.
James shaking his head, and
you come over to the light side.
Well, and I think it's I think a lot of that happens behind the scenes and is a real black box. And I think consumers in general would be very surprised, might not be, but very surprised about the amount of money and technology and time and effort that goes into getting you to spend more money with your data, and how personalized it is, and what companies do with that on a very, very large scale. No, cool. And then I guess so if that's sort of the open banking side of things, personally, I see the future of finance as, consumers not interacting with banks anymore, and really interacting with different brands and trusting different brands apart from banks. And banks have this 150, 200 years, if we look at Lloyd's in the UK, or, 100 years here, or something, Westpac or ANZ or something like that, of consumer trust that they've built up. And they really heavily rely on that for customers not shifting to other places. But I think, products, ease of use, and sort of flexibility that some of the new players in the market like yourselves are offering really can disrupt that, and get consumers to shift over. And I think that will happen. Where do you see the future of PocektSmith, 50 years down the track? Is it that customers only interact with PocektSmith, and you have the customer's brand loyalty, and maybe they have a PocektSmith card, and because you already have the consumer base, 250,000 people, and if that continues to grow, perhaps, just my thoughts on, or your thoughts on where you ultimately want PocektSmith to end up.
I would hope that we've got flying cars by then. I mean, it's long overdue for one of those.
Yeah.
It's a great question, and 50 years is a long time to look ahead. But I can probably speak to the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Before our government announced that they're looking to a consumer data right, and as a precursor to open banking for next year, we've long felt that open banking would already exist, just by fintechs like us connecting with other fintechs, which is, I guess, one of the truest expressions of open banking. We may not be able to interact with finances, and I guess one of the promises of open banking in the UK is that it's not just access to your data, but the ability to transact on your behalf, right? So you can give third parties the authority to move money for you, or to shift banks, and that's probably what scares those large financial institutions is the ability to very easily pick and move your service providers. We know that personal finance, which is really the space we're in, it's not a zero-sum game. From what we've seen over the last 10 plus years, everyone has their own preference for how they would like to interact with their money, and that's certainly how we would prefer to see the environment. We like competitors because it encourages us to be better, and it means that we also get to diversify. Sorry, to the opposite of diversify. It means that we get to focus on what makes us good in a diverse market.
Yeah.
So, and that is the spirit of open banking. It's like, hey, here's all the data. Why don't you do the best thing that you can do with it? As opposed to sort of a winner takes all. So there is an argument, to your point, that PocektSmith, in an open banking environment where the banks effectively become just giant transactional houses, that we become the online banking app for people. So you could theoretically bank with ANZ, ASB, and BNZ, but you would not have to sign into any of those websites, because you'd get all the balances and all of the controls within PocektSmith as your open banking platform of choice. And just bearing in mind, of course, open banking is not just about the third parties. The banks will also come to the party with their own open banking apps as well. So they don't want to be pipped at the post by incumbents. You might see an era where the Westpac banking app will also let you transact into BNZ, because that facility is open to everyone. So as to where we're at, it's just about focusing on what we do very well, which is the ability to let you customize the environment and the experience. We don't believe that the banks will ever go that deep, because really it's they are a mass market interface. They'll do what most of their customers want, whereas we will be the tool that again helps you customize the experience to suit yourself.
Yeah, and just to your, sorry, James, you go.
I was just going to say, I think it's quite tricky for Mike and I working at banks for a long time. Is, as Mike said, these are old institutions which adopted the internet and platforms a long time ago, and to be able to like the amount of investment that's required to opposed to like Jason, even if you think in 2008, how much the technology has changed since then. It's hard for the banks to adapt. And, we've seen providers like Kiwi Bank. I think it was something like they poured $50 million into trying to upgrade their core infrastructure, and the whole thing fell over. So it's tough for the banks to, they've got huge resources, but they have to continue delivering profits, and to make the investment to, keep up with people like yourselves who are very, I know you're going to take the piss out of me out of this word, Mike, dynamic, is challenging, right?
I like to think that there are new business models, and that the banks will be open to working alongside companies like us. So traditionally, we've been on the other side of the fence because that data is, they want to keep it closed. They want to keep that walled garden, and rightly so, because the status quo, even though it means that we don't have the ability to get the data easily. Sorry, you can through PocektSmith, but then PocektSmith, it's complex. When open banking happens, there will be a layer, like everyone's pointed in the same direction, in that we want to have consistency in the way data is transmitted, but also clear guidelines for privacy and security. And I would argue that even though the banks are really, yes, they're looking after their bottom line, but if there is an understanding that the methods for interacting with the data are secure and as airtight as it can be, then they would be open to working with certified third parties in order to provide best value to their clients. And there are different ways to monetize off that as well. So it's just about putting our heads together, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think you'll see that more and more as bigger players move into the space and look to disrupt it, and then as the ultimate driver for banks to really invest and start working with third parties like yourselves, and I'm not saying they're not already, because there's definitely investment in that space, will be when the margins start to take a hit. And I think predominantly the driver for that will be very large institutions like Facebook, like Google, who are already starting to move into finance and disrupt it. And that is the real threat to the incumbent banks. And that will drive a lot of sort of the decisions they make over the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years. And I think you guys especially are in a really prime position to sort of work with the banks and capture that need.
Yeah, and to your point, it's unexpected companies like rideshare companies, for example, Uber, Grab over in Asia. They are applying for banking, if not already have banking licenses, because of all the financial information cards that they've got and the balances they hold. Why can't they be an alternate financial provider? I mean, they are. People are paying for various things using these services. So they're just one step away from, it might be a big step, but offering loans and mortgages and that sort of thing.
Yeah, you are starting to see that predominantly in the Asia market. You look at Alibaba and what they've done with their finance spin-off and that sort of thing. It's absolutely enormous, and almost as one of their biggest offerings in terms of market cap and revenue. So I think that will trickle down to the rest of the world as and you guys, like I said, are prime position to sort of capitalize on that.
Let me ask you, Jason, because I mean, working in the finance space for a while, the terminology of open banking, is on its way. I feel like I've been hearing it for a really long time. When is it expected to arrive? And then in addition to the expected arrival date, when is it actually going to start to make a difference? And, the mom and dads of the world are actually going to see it impact their day-to-day life?
It's a very good question, and I don't want to be too pessimistic about this, but based on what we've seen in the UK and Australia, and I think Mike will back me up on this, is that there'll be it might be legislated next year. That's the consumer data, right? And there's going to be a sector focus, right? So the banking industry, the finance industry, with the first cab off the rank. Looking at what's happened in the UK and Australia, it's going to start probably with very lightweight types of data sharing. I think in the UK it was like an ATM finder or something like that, which was of no use to anyone. And it might be a year or two before we get APIs for transactions, because to your point, core banking systems are complex and old, and unless pushed the banks are not going to invest in building these things up. And it's also a lot of work. On the third party side, there's going to be work in getting, I guess, some sort of a registration or certification from the government in order to ensure that we're secure enough and trusted to take consumer data by these new open banking standards. So you add that plus, I don't know, just how long things tend to roll out, like consumer education and that sort of thing. 3 years, perhaps 5 if we're unlucky. So yeah, I mean, it kind of, I feel a bit deflated even talking about that, but we've got to start somewhere. We have to start somewhere, and we've got the benefit of learning from what the UK has done and from what Australia has done as well.
Yeah, let me see if I can pump you up a little bit there. But because we are later in the cycle of where this at, we are as a country and as an economy a bit later in adopting this, that you can expect that the adoption rate will be quicker in New Zealand, just because of the lessons learned overseas and the fact that the government can use some of their legislation and take the good bits and drop the bad bits from all of that, and won't make the same mistakes. But I think what you'll see, James, to your question about what is the, when is this going to fundamentally impact mum and dad and what does it mean for them? It'll be in incremental steps. It will sort of, it's never going to be the year that this happened of open banking or, this, it'll just be the year that it happened. You're not going to see it. It's almost like mobile phones. It was never the year of the mobile phone. It was the year of the iPhone and really the mobile phone, and that's what changed everything. So I think you'll be able to see that a lot more easily in hindsight. But those changes will come through more incrementally.
And arguably be through services like yours, where you're a big part of the education piece, and already you're extolling the virtues of using products like PocektSmith. We're open banking by just any other. We are in practice open banking without the legislation.
Yeah, great. Okay, I think we're going to wrap it up there. Jason, thank you very much for joining us again. A reminder for those who want to take control of their financial future, make sure once again to check out, we'll pop a link to the PocektSmith website. Give it a go if you want to take control of your financial future. It can be a little bit scary to know where you're at, but knowledge is power, and you need to know your starting point to know where you want to get to. So Jason, thank you very much for joining us. We'll wrap it up. Please make sure before we let you go to like, subscribe, and also give us a review if you're listening to us via podcast. And we'll see you next week.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.